On this side of the road, history is honored. The grass is trimmed, silk flowers brighten the headstones, and the names of the dead are remembered. This is the Spring Hill African American Cemetery in Hernando County, Florida, a burial ground for former slaves, soldiers, and pioneers that is still lovingly cared for today. But across the street, well, that's a different story. This is the Ayers Pioneer Cemetery, though some just call it the Confederate Cemetery. It's locked up tight and pretty much being swallowed by the Florida wilderness. These graves were meant to last forever, but time and a whole lot of apathy had other plans. So we're going to figure out why one slice of history is being saved, while this one is being left to literally crumble. Our story starts here, on a quiet country road about 6 miles west of Brooksville, Florida. And the first thing you notice is the contrast. It's almost comical. To our left, the Spring Hill Cemetery is open, welcoming, and clearly cherished. Generations of prominent African American families are buried here, and you can tell their legacy means something to this community. But then you just turn your head, and across the road, you see a rusted, padlocked gate. Behind it, a jungle. Welcome to the Ayers Cemetery. Established back in the 1850s, this was the final resting place for some of the area's earliest white settlers and a number of Confederate veterans. But you won't find any visitors here. No gardeners. The only recent human touch is the odd, tattered Confederate flag someone leaves behind. It doesn't just feel old, it feels profoundly abandoned. You need permission to even get in, and what's inside is a masterclass in neglect. To get what's going on here, you have to understand this road. Back in the Jim Crow era, this road wasn't just a road, it was a line. A literal and symbolic color line that sliced the community in two. On one side, the burial ground for black residents. On the other, the one for whites. This physical separation was a clear, brutal reflection of the racial segregation that defined so much of the American South. That history is still hanging in the air here. The same road that once enforced a racial divide now separates two completely different fates. The cemetery for the oppressed is kept with dignity, while the cemetery tied to power and privilege is vanishing back into the dirt. And that makes you ask a pretty awkward question. Is this just an accident, or is this some kind of quiet, slow-motion justice? Stepping into Ayers Cemetery feels like walking into a post-apocalyptic movie set. The air is heavy, the silence is buzzing with insects, and the pathways you see in old records are just gone. Swallowed by vines and saw palmetto. Marble headstones, cracked and stained, are tilted over like they're just giving up. A lot of them have already face-planted, their stories silenced. Most graves have disappeared completely, either stolen or just consumed by the ground. You see bits of rusted iron fence, twisted and broken. You see shallow depressions in the ground where graves used to be, their markers long gone. It's a powerful, almost aggressive display of history being erased. Not by one big act, but by the slow, crushing pressure of nobody giving a damn. So who's actually buried in this mess? The cemetery was established around the 1850s, and it's believed the land was donated by the Likes family, a prominent and wealthy clan of property holders in Hernando County. This place was supposed to be a permanent monument to the area's founding families and Confederate soldiers. A few names like Ayers, Baker, and Inslee are still readable on the surviving stones. At least some Confederate veterans are known to be buried here. But trying to keep this history alive has always been a struggle. A courthouse fire back in 1872 destroyed a huge chunk of early county records, taking most of the cemetery's official paperwork with it. That one event made it nearly impossible to create a full map of the plots or a complete list of who was buried here. That fire, more than 150 years ago, was the first domino to fall in the cemetery's long slide into obscurity. It became a place of half-told stories and forgotten names, a puzzle with most of the pieces missing. That brings us back to the big question. Why is this place rotting? The answer isn't simple. It's a tangled mess of legal loopholes, changing social values, and the very awkward legacy of the Confederacy itself. First, there's the question of who's supposed to take care of it. In Florida, cemetery maintenance can get messy. When historic cemeteries fall apart, it's often because they're on private land or belong to families that don't exist anymore. Now, Florida law does give counties the authority to step in and maintain an abandoned cemetery, but here's the kicker. It's an authority, not a requirement. It's a choice. A county can act, but it doesn't have to. And this is where things get political. For years, communities across the South have been arguing about what to do with Confederate monuments. These debates have been especially heated in Florida, with ongoing fights over the removal of Confederate statues from public spaces. In a climate where honoring the Confederacy is a political hot potato, is it really a surprise that there's no rush to spend taxpayer money on restoring a quote-unquote Confederate cemetery? Choosing not to use their authority is the easiest move. It's not a direct action, but a quiet decision to just let nature and time do the dirty work. And here's where the irony of this whole situation just slaps you in the face. Across the road, Spring Hill Cemetery is a monument to a community's incredible resilience. Its grounds serve as the final resting place for people once treated as property who built new lives after emancipation. Their history endures because their community never stopped caring. Their memory is actively preserved. Meanwhile, Ayers Cemetery, founded by the powerful pioneer families whose names once graced local hospitals and libraries, is forgotten. The Likes family, who likely donated this land, grew into a massive and influential corporation with vast interests in land, cattle, and shipping. Yet the burial ground of their ancestors is locked behind a gate, being choked out by a Florida jungle. What we're seeing on this road is a great reversal. The legacy of the formerly enslaved is being honored and uplifted by their descendants, while the legacy of the pioneers and their Confederate soldiers is being allowed to fade away. It proves that history isn't just about stone and marble. It's about who has the power and the will to keep the story alive. Memory, it turns out, is not a passive thing. It's a choice. Spring Hill's full story deserves its own telling, and we'll give it that. But today, it stands here as evidence of something simple. Care didn't disappear from this road. It chose a side. So what does the government actually say? According to Florida statutes, the responsibility for a cemetery falls to its owner. If it's abandoned, descendants can step in and maintain it. If they don't, and the place turns into a wreck, the county has the authority to step in, secure it, and even sue the owner to get its money back. The key word here is authority. Hernando County can intervene, but it isn't legally required to. For a cemetery with such a controversial history, doing nothing is the path of least resistance. It avoids a public brawl over tax dollars and the political fallout of either honoring or erasing a piece of Confederate history. By doing nothing, they are in effect doing something. They're letting it vanish. That locked gate isn't just keeping us out. It's sealing the cemetery's fate. It allows a slow, quiet, and politically convenient decay to continue without leaving any fingerprints. This is the kind of hidden history we are dedicated to uncovering. These places and the stories they hold force us to ask tough questions about who we are and what we choose to remember. If you believe these stories need to be told, make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you don't miss our next investigation. And if you want to help us keep doing this, think about supporting us on Patreon. You'll get access to behind-the-scenes content from our explorations. The fate of Ayers Cemetery is a quiet, complicated, and uniquely American story. It's not a simple tale of good versus bad. It's a story about the messy currents of history, memory, and justice. There was no committee that voted to let it rot, and there's no single villain to blame. Instead, its neglect is the result of 1,000 quiet little decisions. A courthouse fire over a century ago, families moving away, a legal system that allows for action but doesn't demand it, and a modern society that is so busy arguing about the Confederacy that it sometimes just chooses to look away. The road that was once a color line is now a line in time, separating a history that is being actively remembered from one that is being silently erased. And as the Florida wilderness keeps doing its thing, you have to wonder, what other parts of our history are we letting get locked away, overgrown, and forgotten? And what will we lose when they're gone for good?